Right, hello. So in part one, I talked about getting this numpad just up and running. So when you typed in values, it appeared on the screen. In this, it would be added to the string literal code, and it would just appear on the top left when you do like a print. Got that working. I then, at the end of the part one video, I talked about part two and part three, how I wanted to incorporate the ability to use keyboard functions as well as numpad functions, so like keyboard and numpad numbers instead of having to click it with the mouse. I also talked about incorporating it into a radio widget or within not just radio widget but other widgets. Just radio widgets, the first one looked at, and getting this numpad widget in its own functionality wired up to work with the radio widget's functionality. So I did a bit of preliminary work, so I will explain what I've done. Normally I like to code it side by side, but it was a bit of a head scratcher. I recorded it twice and it's taking too long. So let me give you a breakdown of what I've done different since that part one, starting now. So the only thing that's changed in the numpad widget is I've now added in an owning widget here, which originally was a user widget rather than specifically a radio widget, which is a type of user widget. If I click on radio widget, look on the top right, user widget originally was that, but I couldn't then, like I can drag off here and I can do like, if I can spell properly, what have I got? What function have I got? Let me show you. Debug, right. So I could do like debug and I can get that specific function, reference it like that. But I couldn't get that specific function if I just did the generic parent class of user widget. So I had to narrow it down to specifically the child. Um, might change it back, might not, we'll see. It was because I retrofitted off the back of added in that radio widget to the numpad widget since part one. I repurposed hash for testing purposes, the hash key. So um, that repurposed that to work as like an enter, but an enter from the numpad widget. So if I do this, an enter from this level rather than an enter using call from this level. If you see what I'm talking about, I'm doing it at like a lower level. Um, so I don't even think I need that anymore. But let me just show you what I've done since. If I play it, I need to get a test level up, otherwise it won't make sense. Levels, testing, card reader. I think I just retrofitted it. So currently it's not radio, it is a pager. But you press E like that. You right click, equip. If I press N, you can see it's still got the picture of a pager because I haven't done a radio picture, but it's now there. Now when I press E, it now pops up the radio. If you type in a particular frequency and press hash or call, if something's there, it will say something. If you get the right frequency. If not, no. Bit like Signalis, bit like Metal Gear Solid's codecs. So it's 45.35 hash. There we go. Because we've got a specific we've got a specific data asset for the radio, for the law, that is using that frequency. So all I'm doing is matching that frequency. So I can do cancel, and it's gone. There's a bit of work to do with the widget resize and stuff. I need to lock that down. Um, these are like military frequencies. They don't do anything yet. Um, I think VHF is like more like aerospace as well. So I think it's like that's the better one, but I can't remember. These don't do anything yet. Call does work the same as hash, but now that we know call works, I might be able to just trim this off. Let's revert that back to being a hash key. And then the owning widget might actually be able to go back to being just a user widget on the top right, rather than specifically this child iteration of it. So let's see what happens when I press call. It will work because they're different assets. Right click equip to press E again. 45.35 call. Great. So I think we can now just change this to user widget. I wanted to show you what I've been doing since before, we pick up. So I go like that. Yeah, it shouldn't error there. It shouldn't error here either. Now this also means, let me just play it and I'll explain it one more time. Now this also means, because I've changed it to a generic parent user widget rather than the radio widget, if I wanted to put this numpad inside another user widget, I can just plug it in now, rather than having to have a variable for each child version of a user widget, you see. 45.35 call. Great. So this numpad is now 100% generic. We can plug it in into anything. The way I plugged it in to the radio widget is I just type in numpad and I just straight up drag it in. You can see there I've done a horizontal box, and if I go like left and then just collapse them for you, you see there's a vertical box, horizontal box, border, another horizontal box, and then this one, crack it open, so I'm doing like left and right arrow keys. And there you go. So I just created a horizontal box and then I dumped it in and then I just realigned it with the usual alignment stuff, and here and you play around with it. Didn't even do any padding. So it's fully functional plug and play V1. You will have noticed that when I do a symbol rather than a number, it doesn't populate it on here until we do the next number. That is something we can look at, but not right now. It's more like an unexpected bug. The main thing of part 2, which I think is originally part 3, but the main thing of part 2 of the Numpad widget was to get it integrated into the radio and working. So now let me explain the integration of that Numpad widget, this one, into this radio widget here, with the functionality held on the radio widget using the reference of, actually, yeah, right, because it's a component, it's part of it. So using the reference of the numpad widget that we just saw me drag and drop in, like I explained then. That'll be part 2 after I've done that. Then for part 3 I will look at using numpad keys and keyboard keys to enter the numbers, and yeah, I'll just crack the bugs out another time. But right, so here we go. What have I done to get the radio widget work with the numpad widget? So currently it's on tick rather than a more appropriate way to feed the updates. So every time the current frequency, which the current frequency of the radio, this, every time it does not match the numpad's input code, so this variable, every time it doesn't match, then set the current frequency to be the input code. And that's how you saw it was populating that megahertz thing. Um, how it's populating that every time I typed in a new number, because it's working on tick. Should not be working on tick. Functionally fine for a functional, get it up and running, but I will need to migrate it from tick to an actual function that does it. Something like whenever input code's updated, maybe do something at here, or have some sort of bool that goes true false, or I don't know. But either way, you shouldn't use tick because it doesn't need to be checked. What, like 10 times a second? That's not needed. After it's set the frequency, if they don't match, after it's set the frequency, I then get the frequency and I put in a format text. You see, it won't let me scroll in anymore, but you see those little curly braces? You do the curly braces and it'll crack open different variables. We could do I've put like four in at a time, three or four. So I don't know the max limit, but you can do at least three or four. You get that text output goes into the the current frequency text, which is this text here that I've highlighted. It then does the talk text to be dot dot dot, which is where you see dot 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 here, not the border on the text. I collapsed it, but you see this where it says "Hey John." That is when it doesn't match and it updates the frequency. So essentially, anytime you press a new number, whether you cancel it on the numpad, or you type in a new number, that's when that happens. On construct, so when I press E after I've equipped it and it popped up the radio, so then on construct, zero out the frequency and then turn it to dot 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 on the text. And then the frequency is 0.0 megahertz. Then the currency, same again, feeds it into there. And then the owning widget, the numpad needs to know. I don't actually think it needs this anymore, maybe. But at one point, the numpad needed to know who was its owner. So it's like, let me explain. Like, um, hey, okay, so we've got an owning widget. Oh, it was a radio widget, wasn't it, originally? Hey, we've got radio widget, cool. But how? Like, how? Like, where is it? Like, you've added it. It's like doing a grocery list, but it's like saying find bananas. Well, where are they? It doesn't know it's at the fruit section. It doesn't know it's at the the first corner as you enter a supermarket, for example. It just knows it's got to look for these bananas. So I'm saying, hey, this is where this widget is. This is where these bananas are. Use my location, use my reference as that. We will trim it off now and see if it breaks anything. It will come back with a none or it won't interact properly if it does. But I think it's redundant now. Right click, equip, E, 45.35 call. Cool. It is redundant now. Great, we've just simplified the code. You may be thinking, hey Nick, shouldn't you put that as a function? Because it's there and it's there, so why don't you just dump in a function? You are right, and we can do this now actually. Right click, collapse the function. We will call it update frequency. It has an input of float, which cool, it's already done that, but yeah, you haven't done a capital because you're a naughty boy. Unreal, not me. Oh, it's already dragged it in, it replaces it, doesn't it? So there we go, we've got the frequency, and then we could do that as a function really. We could just be like flatten it to just dot 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 or something. Flatten's the wrong word, but we'll leave it as that for now because there is an art to complexity where to intelligent design where complexity is just ridiculous. It's easier for me to go, oh cool, yeah, three dots, than it is for me to go, oh, so it's updating the text, but what is it updating? And then having to go in the function, you see? So it's not always about just because you can do it. You also need to think, is it a truly intellectual decision? But we can replace this one. Control, paste. We want to, if you hold click or hold control and then hold left click, you can unpick, which is surprisingly more helpful than you might first realize. Certainly when um, it can break a lot of these executes and all these, and you've got, things can be confusing and you don't want to wire it up in the wrong place. Being able to control left click and unpick and pop it back is really helpful. So on construct, zeros it. Essentially zeros the text to three dots like ellipses, updates the frequency to the zeroing. Then the search functionality is triggered by, actually, no, technically it's out of order, but that call button you saw that doesn't change, which threw me off originally. I was like, is it a button? And I realized I've not got it to do anything different when you hover or click it. But this, the call button, when you click that, when you release it, so you clicked and then you let go, run search. What is search? Search is this. Search is a custom function that goes for this radio widget, for this radio blueprint actually. So this is a master equipment blueprint. Within this master equipment blueprint, is it valid? Yes. Okay, let's keep going. That gets rid of the non-issues, and it goes access none or can't access variable, blah blah blah. This will only run if it's valid. It doesn't fix your non-issues. It fixes it trying to run it and then returning an error. It just stops it running. So if it's valid, true, then look at the data asset for the equipment. That is a new addition I've added. I will show you. Within that data asset for equipment array of objects, loop until you loop with a break. So loop where current frequency, knock this down a bit so it's easier to see. We've got if frequency of this data asset for equipment, so 45.35, you know what we typed in and then we pressed call, or at one point we pressed hash, now it's just call to make it pop up that emergency thing saying is your fridge running. If the frequencies match, if your current frequency matches the frequency in this data asset which holds that information true, then break Unreal. Is it this one? Then break, and then after you break is like a stop. It's like stop it. Okay, stop it. It could be break because it's bad, break because it's good, break because of any reason. If I didn't do a break, it would loop through everything else and it could potentially return a false, and then it could flash things on and off and cause all sorts of unexpected uh, situations. So I'm saying after you've matched it, break, come after, and then after it's broken, it's now completed this for each. Then set the text to the text header and text body that are formatted like that from uh, from the data asset into what you saw. And just to explain it, if you didn't watch the first bit, right click equip, not N, press E again. 45.35. The search function does that. We press 2. It doesn't find it. We cancel it, doesn't find it. 45.35. Call, finds it again. Like that, doesn't find it. So that is what that search function is doing. Well, it's what everything is doing in totality. That's that. If I show you the data asset thing, so we've got data assets. We've got radio test, there you see, there's the frequency, there's the text body, there's the text header. It's radio, but that's not used at the moment in this case. It's just when I've got more lore items made. That data asset is used by an interact collect radio, so it's equipment here. We go to radio. Let's just do a full blueprint. You will see on your right this equipment radio. So what we collected, even though it said pager, this is what we've collected. It holds within itself the equipment radio, so that's how we managed to feed that radio information in. Like it understands that the player's got radio, but this call is the thing where it says is your fridge running and you've got a type in frequency 45.35. This is the data asset for equipment. So if I go to master equipment, the parent, there's a few other bits and pieces, but you see I've added in this variable at parent level, so data asset for equipment. You might be thinking why it's for equipment and not radio, and that is because we'll have a pager, we'll have documents, we'll have a bunch of other stuff that all share the same array, and array of a primary data asset called the law data asset. The law data asset is what you just saw with a text header, text body, law type, frequency. Frequency won't be used for documents, for example. We can just leave that null. It's like a container. And then unused, just destroy it. You might have noticed as I was going through it, there was a master radio blueprint. That was me overthinking. It's not actually used anywhere, I don't believe, but let's just see. Let's just see. I do remember it saying it somewhere. Yeah, because that's master equipment. That's where I thought I saw it. So let's delete that. Where it's being used in master radio. Well, it shouldn't be. Go to radio, F7, F7, F7. You'll know if it's missed because you go to play and it'll say something and it doesn't look like it's missed. So one more run through. Okay, cool. Right click on equip. You might like this. I don't know if it'll work or it'll cause another bug. But drag off it, right click, equip. Ah, I bugged it. You never used to have that issue, but I had a feeling, when you try and show something after you've not shown it for a while. Right click equip. Normally can drag it off and pop it in. I think it's because it's a new item and I've just, put it together with tape to just get the radio running. So we press E, 45.35, call. If I right click, I don't think that'll get rid of it if I close it. No. So it's very much, we've just, the radio widget's not finished. The numpad is pretty much finished, which is the whole purpose of this video, the part 2. So the numpad now is truly modular to any parent parent user widget we put it in, of which we have chosen to do the radio widget as this part 2 proof of concept, and at the same time we've just done a bit more radio, and that's it. That's hopefully you enjoyed that. Hopefully you enjoyed the logic of it, because understanding the logic of it, like how to get what you're putting in here into here, so what you're doing in there to its parent, that can be the tricky bit. Matching stuff, getting the updates fine. We do need to tidy up this because it really shouldn't be event tick. You want every radio open all the time, but it's just poor. It's just unnecessary overhead. We only need it to do it every time a button changes. So, really, after we pressed each button, I can just get it to do it off the end of this. So, for version 3, we will remove from tick in a parent, remove the numpad functionality from working on tick to working on numpad entry, which it will affect the radio widget as well as the numpad widget. So we'll do that in part 3. In part 4, I will finally get the numpad and keyboard keys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way to 9, all that stuff. Get them functional rather than you having to click the button. And then part 5 will just be tidying it up. So you see right now, press A. See when I hover over it, it's got the default style. I click it, it's got the default style. It doesn't have the curved edge, things like that. It doesn't, yeah, just, huh, interesting. How did it do that? Huh, I think I've created another bug. Does that just work for anything? No, it doesn't work for anything. Fascinating. But if I do 45.35, huh. So as long as 45.35 is there, regardless of where, as long as it's the last element, it does it. Right, we found another bug, but that doesn't stop the plan. So this is part 2. Part 3, move away from tick to working on button updates. Part 4, working on keyboard interaction. Part 5, tidying it up. We'll crack out a couple of bugs. And that's it. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in probably tomorrow.